It would be
Dallas.
better if you played Enter Shaqiri, but we don't want to get into copyright problems.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get that joke.
Those hips don't lie, Peter.
The band?
Oh.
No, that's Shakira.
Oh, no, that's somebody different? Oh, man.
Oh my God, this is a terrible dismount.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. Now, that is your source, soccer90.com. That is for all your U.S. national team, FC Dallas, and international club gear. They got a little bit of everything, like new stuff from Juventus, Manchester United, yep, Ronaldo jerseys, Arsenal, and more. And you Third Degree listeners get 25% off your order when you use the code, say it with me now, Third Degree, at checkout over at the very awesome soccer90.com. Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fans. With 8 games remaining in the season and a new old coach, the same group of players and an owner and a technical director who are insistent that this team can still make the playoffs, giggle, giggle, we'll talk about what is coming up for this Saturday's big game under the new manager here on this new episode of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it's me, Peter, and joining us today first is a man having fun at Darby's expense, Dan Crooke. Dan? Dan? Oh, Dan isn't with us. He's running late. We just started without him. So, luckily, I know he's on time because he's my hero, your hero, everybody's hero, soccer journalist, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. How are you? I literally, whenever time, that's the second time you've done that bit with Dan. I think it's been a long time since you did it. And every time you've done it, I'm like, did he just forget that Dan's not here? For a split second, I'm like, what is he doing?
I secretly hope that maybe Dan popped on and surprised us and is pulling a prank on us, and he's actually going to be here on time. So maybe Dan will pop in here later in the pod. Okay, so I feel like we were just here just a matter of hours ago talking about the stunning turn of events on Sunday when the club announced the firing of Luchi Gonzalez. And if you haven't listened to it already, we already did a 90-minute podcast about that 2 days ago. So we'll keep most of those thoughts over there. But I do wonder, Buzz, in the last day and a half or 2 days since we had that conversation, do you have any extra or new thoughts or insights about the shit canning of Luchi Gonzalez?
Not specifically. There are some stories floating around, and I'm not sure how to put how much validity to put into some of them about when exactly they may or may not have decided to pull the trigger, and how a certain young 18-year-old striker's performance may or may not have slowed that process down a little bit. When you think back to the press conference and they talked about how long and deliberate thought went into this, and yet how everything about it seems reactionary. If you believe some of those stories, then maybe it sort of, you can make sense about how they might have decided at some point earlier in the season to do this. And then lo and behold, here came Pepi to save everybody's bacon, and they put together a string of runs. So then they didn't do it. And then of course, Maurer and Brisson got hurt and the thing went to trash. And then, okay, now we're doing it again. So probably both those things are true, that they had to think about it for a long time, and also true that it was a knee-jerk reaction to the embarrassing performance in Houston.
I said in that podcast, and I even was willing to tweet it out, my prediction of what the next coach would be, because as I've said repeatedly, if I've learned anything about the Hunts and how they do business, is it's always the most obvious answer. Very rarely do they ever do anything too surprising. Now, maybe this is one of those instances, I suppose, but I really believed, or I continue to believe, that the obvious answer for who the next coach is that if he coaches well and they do well in these next 8 games, it's Marco's job to lose. And if he does crappy, then Eric Quill, because it checks all of the obvious boxes. At least it does in my head. But I will share with you, in the last 24 hours, I had a conversation with somebody who's been in those circles, who knows a lot of the players and stuff, and really began to sell me on the concept that relates back to a conversation or an idea or a theory, I don't know what you want to call it, that the three of us talked about starting back at the beginning of the season, which was the Sonata influence theory, which is how much has Andre Sonata, who, by the way, wasn't here when Lucci was hired, walked into this place and went, wait, we got a guy that's never done this before as coach. I can do better than that, and starts chirping in Dan's ear. And as the results got worse, the chirping got louder, and somehow what we're going to end up with is a Sonata guy, right? Because if you really pay attention to the room, over the course of the last several months and year or so, certain people have been picked off that weren't Sonata hires. There's been some coaching changes. There's been this change. This and that's happened. And now Lucci's out. And the guy that is producing all the results for this team in terms of generating revenue and putting them in the news is 100% Andre Sonata. And if there's a golden child within the company right now, it's that cat. And I do now wonder if maybe that's really the path and the angle we should be looking at towards who's going to really pick the next manager for this club.
Yeah, some of the people that I've talked to lately that are some employees of the club, sometimes some people just that are close to the club. You know, you and I on this pod and Dan and for years we've talked about the idea that the Hunts always say that they're going to do this big worldwide search, and then it always comes back to somebody they know. I still feel like that's more than likely true. But there's a lot of people that have said to me now that, boy, this one feels a little different now. And I think that Sonata is that X factor. And I was thinking back to when Lucci was hired in the first place. Muzi was either out the door or was partway out the door at that point, and Sonata had not been hired. So there was no technical director at that press conference. And then I think back to when Oscar was hired. When Oscar was hired, I'm pretty sure that Clavijo was already technical director from my memory, that Clavijo started at the very tail end of Shellis Hyman's era, the last year and a half or so. I don't remember Clavijo being around for Pareja's press conferences and coaching higher press conferences and Clavijo talk about we're going to go do this or that. I think I remember it being only the Hunts.
Yeah, I seem to remember Clavijo came after Oscar was hired.
I don't think so. I'd have to double check my spreadsheet, but I'm pretty sure that that Barry Gorman was Shellis's TD, and they made the disastrous Dax McCarty problem, and by the end of that year, Gorman got fired, and that within the next season or so, Clavijo was hired. That's the way my memory goes.
Yeah, we need to fact check that. That's a weird one. But I'm with you. Either whether he was here or not, he didn't ever feel like he was part of that decision-making process.
No, I don't remember Clavijo being trotted out in front of people is my point, more than it is like when exactly he was hired or not. Do you remember Clavijo ever being put up in front of as the hiring process is starting and being like, oh no, the Clavijo is going to be hiring the next coach? So that's why I mean by it feels like a different scenario to me, that Sonata's out there and Sonata's making the hire. And I am correct, by the way. Clavijo started in 2012. He was there for the last two seasons of Shellis Hyman and Doug Quinn, by the way. It wasn't until Doug Quinn had his falling apart and then Shellis left at the end of that season that Dan Hunt took over at the start of 2014 when Oscar took over, right? And Clavijo was already in his third season by then.
Was that the year when the whole family got together and said, hey, look, we really need to find something for Dan to do? Just give him the soccer team. He seems interested in it. Let's see what he can do.
Do we know exactly when Dan and Clark bought the team from HSG? I don't remember exactly when that was.
You're asking me questions I don't have off the top of my
I don't
head,
think anybody knows exactly when the answer to that question was. That would be an interesting question as well. But yeah, that Clavijo had 2 seasons. Basically, like at that point, there was both president and technical director, and then Clavijo was there 2 years, and then Dan became president. So now there's only technical director and owner sitting around, But
I get your point. No, Andre Sonata does represent a different change in tactic in terms of how they put somebody like that out in front and in front of the crowd. They didn't really ever parade Clavijo around very much.
Yeah, well, certainly not the last few years, but even prior to that, no, they did. I don't remember him being out front and center on many talking points at all, frankly. Most of his work seemed to happen behind the scene with Dan Hunt out there doing it all. Anyway, bottom line is, it feels a little bit different this time. I don't know if it's different enough. In the end, the money is what it is, and how much does Sonata talk about? You have to buy into our DNA. I think those two things are still true, and I still think the Hunt Trust is still true. But there is a little bit of a different vibe this time, a little bit of a different vibe, and we'll see if it makes a difference.
Yeah, and I want, because I'm really personally torn. I'm torn between my adage of just follow the most obvious answer and also believing in the fact that, well, hey, wait a second. We talked about this concept of Sonata being a guy driving a new direction months and months ago, and that was clearly on our radar back then. And I'm confused as to which part of this I should be listening to and believing in more. I guess time will tell, and I shouldn't be surprised at either at this point. I guess really what it's going to come down to is the type of coach they hire. Somebody with a lot of experience and a big pedigree and a resume, which is what I think you would get if Sonata ends up winning this, relative to anybody else that the Hunts are going to hire, which will end up being Marco Ferruzzi or Eric Quill. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying he's bringing in a Tata Martinez. I think he's bringing in one of these guys that we have on our list that have relatively large South American resumes, and they'll see what they can do. Yeah. So. No, I agree with you we're going to find out. I was talking to somebody today, and I said, listen, I don't wish ill will on anybody, of course, but when a coach gets fired, it becomes a fascinating time for us, even more so when there's 8 games left in the season, and we get both the run of the interim coach trying to win the job and the players trying to win jobs or not, if they don't want to be here. And the new technical director, what does he want? The owner's typical style, what do they want? Then you're going to have the offseason moves are going to happen really quickly because there's always an expansion draft. And then it's like, okay, what does the new guy do? Is he rebuilding? Is he jettisoning guys? How much time is he going to have to look? Are they going to do some, if they don't make the playoffs, will they do some postseason training with a new coach? How fast does that happen? I mean, the next 3 months are going to be, for us, so much fun. We're going to have so much stuff to talk about. Again, I don't wish Will for Lucci, but man, what a time to be covering a team when this kind of chaos is going to be happening over the next 3 months. It'll be fun. Yeah, and the whole Marco thing, I got a lot of questions about what do these players have to play for at this point. What is Marco really Marco's position I find really interesting in the fact that he's a guy that is kind of playing for his gig, but he's not playing for a gig, because in the same press conference, Dan said he's playing for his future, but he'll always be a coach here, is essentially what he said. Because if he does crappy in this role, they'll just keep him in the role that he's in. So he's not at risk at anything here. It's almost like he joined a game show and he's playing with house money at this point.
Well, we'll talk about it more in a little bit, but I can assure you that he absolutely desperately wants this gig and is bringing it 100% as much as he can to get it. So and we'll talk about some of that later.
We can, but I will also post this concept. There's a difference between coaching for this gig because you want it and coaching for this gig because if you screw it up, you're out of work, period.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there is a huge difference in those two things. Yep. And I guess we'll find out. All right, so unfortunately, out of all of this, what we have still yet to talk about is the trigger effect that caused all of this, at least, I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, was that utterly embarrassing loss in Houston, which has so many components of indicators that something haywire was going on that does lead me to wonder if maybe what ended up happening on Sunday was something that maybe had begun to happen in the works and the players had found out beforehand because of some of the reactions after the way the team just flat out played. I'd like to believe that maybe that's just the result of 3 games in 7 days, but in hindsight, you do begin to wonder. And 2, some of the post-game reaction, too, where they didn't really seem to go out and say anything to the fans. But overall, it was just a really crummy performance in Houston.
Yeah, I think some of the writing's probably on the wall at that point. I listen, when you watch that game's performance, and I told you that I had somebody a national media guy, text me and be like, they quit. And go back and watch the game and the goals, and there is a whole lot of quit happening on that field. I'm not talking about like just guys getting beat. Like, Justin Shea got roasted multiple times, but he also got exposed on an island because that game is a perfect example of what happens when you play a 4-4-1-1 and the 2 outside wings don't check back and play the proper defensive position on top of the outside backs. You get guys getting double overloaded, which is exactly what happened on the first goal. The left back, Lundqvist, came forward and overloaded Che, and Orion reacted late, and so Che got wrecked Not all his fault, but he got wrecked. And the second goal, same thing on the other side. Paxton was walking back up the field, didn't get back in position, and Tumasi got overloaded. Again, not his fault. He covered the correct guy, but when you include those two guys not getting back and defending with two holding mids that were kind of walking back a little bit too, the defense just melted down and didn't show the fight and the will and the determination. The only players that really showed that late were Jesus Ferreira and Ricardo Pepi. Both were showing a lot of spirit really the whole game. Jesus kept getting people's faces, and then Obrian tenacious at the end, although he was lacking a lot early. So overall, just a really embarrassing performance, and not a surprise. That's why the next day when I was like, "Are you shocked?" No, I caught off guard, yes, but not shocked, because you could watch that game and go, "That's the kind of trigger game that triggers the Hunts." When you compare it to the Steve Morrow 5-0 LA game where they got blasted and then he got fired the next day, and when you get fired on a Sunday, that's triggered firing. That's reactionary firing. That's not planned out. Coming on Monday, we're going to sit down and sign the paperwork firing. That's, you know what I mean? That's different.
Well, it was another game in which they gave up 3 goals, and that now goes back 4 of the last 5 games. They have given up 3 goals. Now, yeah, they beat Austin 5-3, and they tied New York City in New Jersey 3-3. But the amount of leaking of goals was just, man, there's so many things that we've talked about on this podcast that lead to it. But in that game in particular, Buzz, I agree with you. There was a lot of quit, because when you see Paxton Pomykal, our hero, walking back in that situation, you either wonder one of 2 things. Is he hurt and not 100%, or has something happened for him just to not care enough to do it anymore? Because that is very, very unlike Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah, and this is a game where I didn't put any of it on Philippe. It was just, and Dan, I don't know what you thought about watching this team play.
Oh, wait, is Dan here with us now?
Yeah, Dan's here. I was going to ask Dan what he thought about the mentality, because I saw, like, for the whole first 60 minutes maybe, I saw guys that were not particularly fussed about the fact that it's Houston, and this is a game where you should leave blood on the field kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I didn't see anyone that turned up for a derby game. I didn't see anyone itching to, get one back for Carlos Ruiz's kick to the head from Ricardo Clark or anything. It was weird as well from the younger guys. They've played these games that, ever since they were 12 years old, and they're the ones that every year talk about, oh yeah, we've dominated the academy derbies, so we want to do the first team derbies, and it was guys like Brandon and Paxton that are just like strolling around the park, kind of looking around.
It was a bad game all the way around, and the thing that I can't quite cotton in my head is how Obrian managed to score 2 more goals, and now is like second on the team. I mean, he is. If this is the most Roland Lamar version 2.0 season I could ever imagine would ever happen to this team again.
Yeah, listen, we've talked to death about the fact that he's only doing half the gig, and on the offensive end, the big difference for me is like the last 4 or 5 times he's been in games, he stopped seeking penalties, stopped seeking foul calls. He's fighting through some play. He's fighting through some of those defenses, and it's all the difference in the world in terms of his success rate. Now, listen, I still think there are other guys I would rather have start. I still think he's mostly useful as a late sub. We just talked about how he totally exposed Justin Shea for the first 60 minutes of the game. Right. But when a guy the second one was a bomb. When you score like that, you're going to play again. He's going to play again, and 4 goals in 2 games is a heck of a quick run. So, as on fire as he is, you just got to compensate for him defensively. But, wow. It's mind-blowing.
It is. And it's and you know what it is? It's the comic relief of this season.
Yeah, it really is.
He is the cowbell in an SNL skit, no doubt about it. Okay, do we really have to talk about the Houston game anymore? Is there anything really worth talking about it? It's terrible, and I don't really care anymore. And I don't want more people telling me I'm wrong about Fafa Pico, because I know I'm right about Fafa Pico. Good for him for having another good game against Dallas, but whatever. He's also on a terrible, terrible team.
Yeah, he's actually tied his career high 10 goals. I looked it up just because I was amazed by how much he scored lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is Pepi doing the same thing, just being the kind of good player on a terrible team and making themselves look better?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, we should mention the fact that in the hours prior to us recording this, at least one source is reporting that Pepi's people and FC Dallas are somehow in negotiations, and within the next couple of weeks will announce a deal for Pepi to go to some random club. A couple of, what is it? It's 2 clubs in Italy and 1 club in Germany that are interested in him, Buzz?
I think it's 3 Italian, 2 English, and 2 German, if I remember correctly. It doesn't matter. It's a lot. I mean, it's the same thing with Reynolds. Like 30 clubs called. It's just it's who's going to show up with the checkbook, who's going to be willing to deal with the shenanigans that are going to be the Hunts negotiating, because they are unbelievable with trying to do this and that and the other and mess it all up. But we'll see. I mean, I still think that the money that person is talking about seems right to me. You know, if a little high in the dreamland on the hop in, but in the middle part seems right. So we'll see. It's not going to surprise me at all if he goes this winter, frankly.
You know, I have not thought about this until just now. Can anybody, Dan, you're really good with this part. Has FC Dallas yet come out on the winning end of a sell-on clause versus what they could have gotten if they had just sold it for little to no, with no additional sell-on clause or a much smaller one? Like Chris Richards hasn't been resold yet, has he?
He's just been loaned twice.
So, I mean, they've got multiples of these deals out there, right? Which is, hey, we sold these guys for a little less money or maybe even a lot less money in transfer fee because on the back end we get a much bigger chunk of whatever their next deal is. And I'm trying to think, has any of that yet paid off in the form of a payment? And I can't think of anybody.
The one they're waiting for is Reggie.
Yeah, Acosta also did not. What about Mauro Diaz? I don't think Mauro Diaz did either.
No,
Maxi Arruti had one that never got.
Yeah,
obviously he didn't get sold.
Yep.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Which is with all of the you know, what they probably think is super sharp negotiating and cutting deals to get these guys into clubs that is going to pay them more money because these guys are going to come good when they go to Europe. I don't think that's happened yet, and I'm not. You know, I don't know. Will it? I assume one of these guys may turn a big deal, but I don't know if it works. I think what we're going to see on a measure, on balance and long term, they're going to end up screwing themselves. They could have gotten more money if they had just taken the paycheck up front.
I was thinking this week about how much about everything this club does now is because of Weston McKennie. Think about it, right? Think about, like, even now, Dan had the line about protect the club, and people were like, what the hell does that mean? I go, it means not have another Weston McKennie, where the guy leaves for free. Think about, like, Weston's move from Schalke to Juve. That big check, that's why they do sell-on clauses. Think about how they want to lock up these academy guys and get them past their 18th birthday so they can then loan them on and sell them on like Richards. It's because of Weston McKennie. It's like 90% of the way this club does business now is because of Weston McKennie and reaction to Weston McKennie. It's mind-blowing. I was thinking about it today. It just blew my mind.
Yeah, it is interesting to think, though, that if Weston McKennie had signed a deal with FC Dallas, would he have ever gone to Schalke? And would he then have, in turn, gone to Juventus? I don't think he would have. I think the path would have been very different.
Oh, completely different. But, I mean, you can't play a what-if game. I mean, a million things could have changed. You know, it's just... You know, of course it would have been different because he would have been here instead of in Schalke, so it would have been different.
The report also, the tweet or the report, it's over at 90-Minute Football, and how accurate those guys are, I don't know, but it seems to be getting retweeted a lot, is that the fee that they're being talked about is actually higher than the current MLS record for a sale of an MLS player, which is Alphonso Davies, which would be, you know, throw the Hunts into some sort of orgasmic stratosphere if they in fact end up getting $20+ million for Ricardo Pepi. And even I think that's high.
Yeah, well, I think that if I read the article correctly, that's like could reach it with blah blah incentives, whatever. I think the base price will be much lower than that. But it is always true that the closer you get to goal, the more you get to be in a number 9, the more you're a goal scorer, the higher the prices go. That's pretty standard. So it won't shock me if he goes for more than Davies, because Davies not a 9. Davies at the time was a wing, but everyone knew he was going to be a back. So it's not surprising.
Dan, he's gone this winter, right? Almost like 100% lock.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever the next coach is, no matter who it is that hires him, will not have Ricardo Pepi for the 2022 season.
No, I'm sure that's the first question that they're going to ask in the interview is, so have I got the kid? No, you haven't.
A, have you got the kid? No, he's gone. B, who do you got in line to replace him?
Well, that's the flip question. That's what the Hunts will ask is, you're not going to have Pepi. What are you going to do? That's the interview question.
But that's not their job. That's
Oh,
Sonata's job.
That's partially their job. But you're right, it's mostly Sonata's job. Yeah, that's a good point. No, yeah, sure. The coach has input on all that stuff. Coaches know guys, know players. Remember, they just in the press conference, they just said Jose Martinez and Obrian Berlucci's. And I'm like, great, Franco Harris, Dan
really
Hunts.
disparaging way to those two players as well.
Yeah, that whole conversation was really weird, and I'm not sure that what they were really saying was that Lucci went out and picked those guys. It was just that Lucci really supported the hiring of them, is how I interpreted that. But they tried to make it sound like Lucci went out to the store without telling anybody and came back with groceries that nobody asked for.
I mean, those two dudes are better than Vargas, so I don't know why they wanted to blame. The only one better is Schoen. So it's like, you picked out the second and third best signing. Everyone else has been worse.
As bad as Obrian has been in certain areas, your owner talking down your second top scorer as well. He's Lucci's guy.
Yeah.
Just like, wow.
Look, the more I think about that press conference, the more confusing and maddening it gets, because in one hand he says those types of things, and then not 5 minutes earlier he's talking about the amount of firepower this team's had and how disappointed he is that they're not winning more games because of how awesome this offense is, and they're just not getting what they should be getting out of it. Or Lucci wasn't. At least that's the implication he was passing out.
Well, there was so much contradictory stuff in that press conference. It's just
Hara's a goal scorer.
Yeah. Obrian's got 8 goals. I think he's probably fine as a signing. If Martinez wasn't hurt, at the beginning of the year, he looked really great to me as a starter until he got hurt. So I don't know that those are the two guys you want to point at. Say Lucci sucks and point at those two guys when those are two of the best 3 signings for this year.
Well, all right. I guess it's time for us to move on, quit being sour grapes, and look forward. And you got to go to practice today and talk. That is what we do, Dan. That's true. Fair enough. You got to talk to the man himself. You had a little Marco Ferruzzi one-on-one. How did that go?
Good. Marco is I'm going to talk about how he's different than Lucci. If you listen to Lucci talk, Lucci gives speeches, right? He gets these sort of ideas, then he sort of keeps running them around and reformatting them in different ways. Marco's different than that. When you ask Marco a question, he actually, for one, he's a very careful talker. He does not get excited and get ahead of himself. He talks very slowly, but in the sense that he's clearly thinking about what you asked him and trying to give you a real answer. He also plays cards really close to his vest. He does not give away a lot of details, deep details. He'll give you real information. He just is really careful about what he says, So talking to him is very, very different than Lucci. It's kind of refreshing in a lot of ways, and I've known Marco for 14 years now, so we have a pretty good relationship already. We talked today about who has influenced him the most as coaches, and he literally he says cherry-picked ideas from every single one of them. Every single coach he's worked with, he has stuff he's taken from them and put into his own system. He did say that he's worked the most and the most closely with Oscar, implication being that that's probably the closest to the kind of style that he will be as a coach and the kind of style he'll be tactically. I can tell you for sure that his formation he likes the best is 4-2-3-1. Basically, very similar to what the team already plays, a double pivot. He is stuck in a lot of ways with the roster not a lot of ways, flat out. He can't not make any moves. He's stuck with the roster that he has, and he's stuck with the depth chart that he has, and pretty much most of the ways. Now he can shuffle things around, but there's no new players coming in. There's nobody coming up from North Texas. There's no surprise academy signing. Basically he's locked into what he has. So there will be some adaptation. There will be some slight changes, but there's not going to be a complete reinvention of the wheel. And those are the biggest sort of takeaways from my conversation with him. I think there's definitely a sense that he knows that he's coaching to get this gig if he can. That his performance over 8 games is going to be the thing that's going to get him this job or not. And there's some real positive sort of thinking on his part of like, I got a chance here to grab this by the wheel and determine my own fate. But also not trying to think big picture. Definitely that message that they repeated about from the Feet Media the first day about it's just about Vancouver this week. I think that's very true based on what I saw. I don't see rotations happening that are about development. The rotations I saw happening are 100% about winning this game. So it'll be fascinating to see how it goes going forward. It's going to be fun.
Dan, I'm interested. We're going to jump back here for a second because you weren't here for this part of the conversation where Buzz and I were kind of talking about the two different lines of thinking about how the next coach will be hired. The general thinking that this will go exactly the way it always goes. They'll hire the person in-house, which is either Marco because he coaches well or Eric Quill if he doesn't coach well. And then the other concept of the Sonata influence, that the person that is actually going to end up getting hired next is of somebody of Andre's decision-making, which could mean any South American type guy that he brings up here. And so when you listen to Buzz talk about Marco's position, if you're a believer in that latter theory, it may not make any difference if he wins 8 games or not, because if Sonata really is pulling the strings here and he's got somebody from South America he wants, maybe Marco's dead man walking anyway.
I mean, that's something that we said earlier in the season, right? It didn't matter what Lucci does in some ways because Andre's had his hand in kind of everything except the head coach. And that he may have his guy, whether it's someone from Gremio or someone he's crossed paths with at Sport Recife or Santos, or even when he was doing commercial crap in Mexico for Atlante, technical director he makes himself important by having a hand in everything, so that everything kind of works in his favor.
Do you think so working that, let's think that through. Do you think that secretly when he goes to bed at night in his bedtime prayers, he's hoping that the team doesn't play well over the next 8 games, that being Mr. Sonata?
I don't know. It's kind of funny. The longer this goes on, the more I'm like, was this a power struggle or wasn't it?
What do you mean?
The whole Lucci situation.
Who is the power? You mean between Lucci and Sonata?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, just talking to people, whether it's fans, people close to the club or anything, it's like, that question seems to come up a lot. Like, doesn't it sound like a power struggle to you? Yeah.
Does it sound like a power struggle to you?
A little bit. Especially, more so probably because you've then got the owner talking in a very disparaging way about, well, Lucci had 2 guys. They were his guys. We gave him everything you could possibly ever desire in life,
and even some things you wouldn't desire, like Frank O'Hara.
Interesting. All right. Well, anything in particular about training, Buzz, that people should know?
Yeah. For one, it's the most intense session I've seen in quite some time.
What does that mean?
Pace.
There's a lot of grunting.
No. Physical play.
Lots of squats.
They do have squat racks on both sides of the field.
Sorry, Buzz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a good question you didn't want the answer to.
No, I just wanted to be silly. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Speed of the ball, intensity of the ball, intensity of the physical play, how hard guys are moving and running, tackling. Nkosi Tafari just absolutely crushed Frank O'Hara today. It made me laugh. Just destroyed him. That was good. It's a combination of there's definitely some coach change bounce. That always happens for sure. Even when I talked to Marco, we talked about that. But there's definitely some intensity from guys that maybe are seeing a fresh opportunity. There's like, there's a door open for me to get back in. Or a guy that maybe all of a sudden is like, I might not be starting this weekend. I better bring it here really quickly and try and show something. And even when I talked to Marco, one thing he really talked about, and again, it's the same message they repeated to the media on Tuesday, except that I wasn't running a recorder. We were just having conversations. Was this idea of intensity, and was this idea of taking it one game at a time and trying to elevate, and that they had all, as a collective, not been bright enough or sharp enough and shown the will to actually win games the last couple. So it was the most intense session I've seen in, maybe since early in the season, maybe even spring training, because it has that vibe of everyone's on the chopping block. Because
it was also 80 degrees today, or 70 something degrees. That probably helped a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, the time training started, it was almost like 60, and it got up to 80 by the time, and that obviously makes it a lot better because those guys aren't getting zapped by the heat, of course, too. So all those things contributed to make it a really bright, really quick, high energy, high pace session, and it looked terrific.
One of the things that I thought about that I wondered is how the players are reacting to this, because you've got two different groups of guys. Some of these guys are used to this kind of stuff. I'm sure Frank O'Hara's been through more managers than underwear over the years, and I'm sure some of these South American guys come from clubs that change managers every year, and so this isn't unusual to them. But I do wonder what the Brandon Cerveñas, Edwin Cerrillos, Paxton Pomacals, Edwin, Tuamase type guys must be thinking right now, because if the manager ends up being Ferruzzi or Eric Quill, they probably feel pretty safe. But if Sonata gets his way, again, we're all speculating here, and brings some guy up from South America, I wonder if they feel as secure as they normally would if it wasn't one of those two other guys.
You hear little nibbles and you hear little chatter, and I think that both the behavior of the team on the field and some kind of things I hear, I think there had been a little bit of tune out over the last 3 or 4 weeks, that people had gotten a little bit tired of the status quo as it was. We talk a lot about these coaching cycles, 3 to 5 years or whatever, and Lucci was coming down to the end of year 3, so it was getting close to the end of a cycle, and the progression was going the wrong way. I think the players recognize that as much as anybody. And if you're a young player that has a lot of confidence in your ability, then you're probably really excited about a fresh opportunity. That's where some of the coach bounce will come from. And the other side of that coin is, if you're a veteran guy, you've seen it a million times, but you know that the new coach, who it could be the guy you're playing for right now, but let's say even if you don't think it's a likely scenario, well, the new guy is going to come in and watch every single game you're going to play for the next 8 games, maybe more. They record and do video sessions on every single training session. They have advanced data from every training session with GPS. The new coach is going to have access to all that stuff. So you're playing in a lot of ways. You're not just playing for Marco right now. You're playing for the next guy who's going to show up in November. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Marco or whether it's a new guy, he's still going to get to look at all that same stuff. So you're trying to make an impression and play for your career, because when you have a team that's in the situation this one is, if you don't make the playoffs, if it goes the wrong direction, it gets even worse, half this team could be gone. And when you get dumped from a bad team, you don't get picked up by Atlanta and Seattle. You get picked up by the USL Championship. So if you want to stay in MLS, or Cincinnati, or more than likely even somebody worse than Cincinnati, you can end up out of the game. You can end up out of this league and out of the game completely. Yeah. So when you get cut from a bad team, so people are going to be playing to be spotted by more, or maybe you're playing to get spotted by another team. Yeah. If I'm going to be out of here at the window, I better show somebody that I'm worth keeping in Major League Soccer.
All right, then run with me a little bit here. I have a belief that the X factor in all of this, in terms of just players, is Ricarte. And the reason why I feel that way is this. Sonata found him, brought him in. He came with a whole bunch of hype. Valderrama was talking about how he was the best midfielder playing coming out of Colombia, from the Colombian leagues. We've heard since then that Leonel Alvarez was a big fan of his. We were told all sorts of great things about him, and he's quietly just kind of disappeared from this team while Lucci was the coach. And we've all talked about how we feel like it was a weird fit. And I do wonder, again, this goes back to the whole Sonata influence thing, which is I wonder if we're going to suddenly start seeing that dude in the lineup more and more in these last 8 games. Either A, because somebody says, play that guy and play him in this kind of formation so we get the most out of him, or B, hey, you need to play him so we can put him in the shop window so we can get rid of him. You see what I'm saying? That's why I think he's like the X factor in all of this.
Well, he's easy to get rid of. You just don't turn his loan down. That's easy.
Oh, is that what happens? It's up at the end of this season?
Yeah. It's at the end of the season with an option to buy, if I remember correctly. But the X factor is interesting because, as you say, I agree with you that I think he could be a tremendous asset, and he has not been. But you remember what they said in the press conference, that the offense is great and the defense is bad. And then I can't remember where I saw Marco said it. I don't remember if he said it to me or whether it was in yesterday's media stuff, where he said basically like you have to take advantage of the things that are going well and try and fix the things that are going bad. Well, the thing that's going well is the offense. It's Pepi, it's Jesus. It's last couple of games, Oberon. It's Shun. It's Paxson. It's that combination up front. Well, that's where Ricarte would need to play. And it doesn't sound to me like they're going to mess with that. It sounds to me like what they're going to try and fix is the defense, as Dan Hudd said like 30 times in that press conference. And based on what I saw in training, I don't think Ricardi's starting this weekend. Now, if they don't win this weekend, then it's going to change. As somebody reminded me earlier, the last time Marco was in charge, the lineup that he did the first game was a little bit of like, okay, y'all are veterans, here's your chance. And then like within a game or two, he started changing things. And within a couple of games, he got them playing better with some different kind of bodies going on. So it's entirely possible we might see that same sort of activity that, okay, we knew that this was good and we got to fix these couple of things. If we start going a game or two and things aren't moving the way I want, we're going to change things radically, and then we'll see. But short term, no, I don't think you're going to see Anders Ricarte this weekend.
Okay. Well, the other aspect to him being an X factor is if he doesn't play, because again, he's one of Sonata's signings, and they made a big deal out of him coming here and being something that he turned out not to be.
Yeah.
And if he ends up just disappearing after even more, disappearing to the point where he's not even on the team next year, I think that's a super bad look on Sonata, and yet another mark in his time as technical director here.
Yeah, you have to consider that Philippe's his guy too.
Philippe's his guy.
Yeah.
He signed Vargas. He signed Obrian. Sean is his signing.
Yeah.
Huh?
Sean
Yeah, Sean we like so far. Yeah. We're not gonna hold Hara against him.
No, that's Dan.
Right?
Yeah.
He brought us Thiago Santos, but then he took Thiago Santos away.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking Thiago Santos away right before the season is killer. You could make the case is that that's the reason Lucci got fired in the end, because that to start the season without Thiago Santos crushed the first start of the season, and that basically put you in a hole.
Yeah, you know what? I really feel like we all failed as media members in the press conference on Monday when none of us, and I accept this blame as much as anybody else, we did not inquire about the impact of the sale of Thiago Santos and how much that played into the ultimate results of this season.
I think, remember the time we talked about how we understood it as a business move, but man, that really was going to screw Lucci over.
I know.
And that's really what happened.
That's why I think the question was fair game in that press conference. And if I ever get a chance to talk to either one of those guys again, I promise I will push on that again, because I feel like it should have been asked. I should have asked it, and I didn't.
Well, you did at least ask him if he felt culpable. So that was
I was kind of going there, right? That was kind of part of the reason why. And to be fair to Andre, he said, yeah, he did feel culpable. He did feel responsible. Although most of its answer, he just tried to pass off the part that he had said in Spanish 45 seconds earlier, and I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know what he said. And then I got cut off before I got to ask him to say it back in English. But anyway, that's another thing for another day. All right. Well, I do find that all of that fascinating, like you do, Buzz. This is an interesting time. So Vancouver is up. The game is this Saturday. It is up in Vancouver. It is a road game, and it's a 9 p.m. game, and it will be on TXA 21. I don't know who's doing play-by-play for the team. I don't know if it's Mark or not, or if it's Owen, but certainly Steve Davis will be there. In terms of lineups, what should we be looking forward to for this?
Well, you can imagine that when you score 4 goals in 2 games, that O'Brien's back. Of course, Pepi will be in there. Jesus will be in there.
Squirt it in my veins, O'Brien. More Javier O'Brien.
More O'Brien. Right now, I think Paxton's still the first choice, but Schoon's definitely in the mix there at that position, only because O'Brien scored twice. If O'Brien hadn't scored, I think it would be Schoon and Paxton. But and then midfield-wise, today, first choice was Facco and Acosta, but Cervania definitely got in there, and Surreal got in there, in terms of competition. Ryan Hollingshead is still out. Marco told me that Ryan's injury is not serious, and that he and Ryan and the training staff will be discussing whether how soon he's ready to come back, and if he is ready and cleared by the training staff, that he would of course be in competition to play right away. And so you're seeing today. I saw some Minjoma at left back, and I saw Tomasi and Che competing at right back. And then in the middle, first choice, Brisson is back. So Brisson is obviously first choice again. I saw a little bit of rotation with Martinez and Tafari, but mostly it's Brisson and Hedges, it looks like. And then the big news, of course, the best news is Jimmy Mauer's back in training. Hopefully that means Jimmy Maurer could start.
Well, wait a second. No, I think you're bearing the lead here. Are you saying that Tafari is not going to start?
That's the impression I got based on rotations.
Why in the hell would they take him out off the field? He's the best. He's been the most consistent defender on this team running now for what, 8-10 weeks, Dan?
Something like that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
You're welcome.
All right, whatever. Go ahead, Buzz. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt with that.
No, I think that Brisson, if he's back off of injury, I think Brisson's a no-brainer based on the way he was playing and what's been missing. And so,
am I wrong about Tafari?
No, you're not. But you're also talking about Hedges and Ferruzzi, who've known each other for a very, very long time.
But Hedges has not been good this year.
Well, you're talking to the wrong person. If you want to complain about the lineup, I'm just telling you what I witnessed.
No. I'm asking you for insight as to why they would sit their best defender. And maybe it's an organization thing, but I don't. Maybe Matt's a better organizer of this team than I think he is. But I don't know.
Well,
I'm just when you say that what I think is the best defender on this team all season is being sat after the coach got fired. Yeah. I'm surprised by that. Sorry.
Well, Nkosi was one of the guys that had a really strong reaction today. He was obviously not too happy. He didn't say anything. I'm just going based on his effort and energy and the fact that he absolutely crushed Frank O'Hara, that he may have had some trying to prove a point that maybe I should be in there with Brisson or Hedges, and he may agree with you that he should be playing. Now, the one thing I wanted to say about Marco that I didn't was that if you go back to remember what I told you about him playing his cards close to his vest, he's well aware that I'm standing there watching. Now, you may think this is ridiculous, but Thursday and Friday practices are closed. And today, I did not see a full field 11 versus 11 session. I only saw half field 11 versus 11 where they're working on particular mechanics. So the rotations I'm watching are not the rotations of this is the full field concepts we're using for the game this weekend. And Marco specifically said to me at one point that I'm not going to give away everything I'm doing talking to the media. And for me, with Marco, it would not shock me at all if he's decided that the first 2 days of training, I'm just going to mix up all these things and try all these different combinations with zero thought as to who actually will be starting this weekend. And it's not till Thursday or even Friday that he'll actually get into starting. So I'm less confident than I have been in a long, long time from watching training that means that Hedges and Brisson are starting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it.
So I tell you what, that was the first rotation I saw today. And again, Tafari did not seem particularly happy. So, we'll see.
Yeah, don't make. I'm not trying to. I'm not killing the messenger. I was surprised at the way you kind of you brushed over that, because that really catches me off guard. I mean, if we get to Vancouver and find out that Tafari is not starting, I'm gonna be a little surprised by that.
Well, you remember what I said about Marco wasn't doing stuff based on the idea that you're playing for the next season. That's kind of what I meant. Like if you're Marco and you've known Hedges forever and he's played for you forever, and you're like, I got to win one game only. Am I playing Hedges or am I playing Tafari? You might go Hedges if you're Marco.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah?
Based on this season, if it's me, it's Tafari all day, all night. But.
Sure, but you're not 14 seasons with Matt Hedges.
I get it.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And the reason I say that is because, like, he was adamant today, Marco was, this is not with a recorder running, so it's not like a quotable quote that's getting thrown on the air. He was adamant today that right now, it's only about Vancouver, and that's it. One game.
And that's clearly the internal message, because if you go back and listen to any of the players' video stuff that they supplied the media, they're all saying the same thing. It's like Paxton is like, all we care about is Vancouver. All we care about is Vancouver. It was the most boring interview you could possibly imagine. You could tell he was really put out by it, because he was told to say nothing other than all we care about is Vancouver. Yeah,
and Dan would know this as well too, that if you have a new coach, sometimes they lean hard on vets. If you're talking about a team that's lacked a little leadership, maybe you're going to lean hard on Hedges, and maybe you even had a meeting with Hedges and like, dude, look, I need more from you. I need you to be a leader. I need you to step up here.
I was waiting for a break to say that.
Oh sorry. I tried to set you up.
I mean, you're totally right. I mean, Marco has worked with Matt Hedges for, 8 of his 10 years. Matt's 10 years, that is. 8 of Marco's 14 years. He's never worked with Tafari. He hasn't worked with Brisson, but he knows Brisson is an experienced guy. He knows what he's getting. He's going to, in those first few days, like you say, he's going to lean on those veteran guys that he knows are workers, who can maybe, you're kind of starting from scratch. You're kind of helping on the younger guys through training. So maybe that is Matt's playing more of a role, and Brian Acosta's playing more of a role. It's kind of just a natural thing he's going to lean on, the same as he's going to lean on, Drew Keyshawn more than he's going to lean on maybe Peter Lucene, because he's just spent more time working with him.
I remember Dan Hunt in the press conference said something about maybe we played too many homegrowns, and then talked about how crap the defense was. So it wouldn't shock me if there was some, okay, game 1, I'm going to give you Hedges, Brisson, Facco, and Acosta, and then we'll talk. So we'll see.
All right, Buzz, if this is so funny to me to ask this question. This is actually, it's not funny. It's silly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Buzz, if you got a phone call and they said, Mr. Carrick, we would like for you to select our starting 11 in Vancouver. What is your starting 11, and what is your formation? Seriously, I'm asking you this question.
Wow. Well, you're asking me without letting me know you were going to ask me this question.
I'm just surprised you can't just blow it off the top of your head.
Yeah,
I just assume you thought about this 24/7.
No. I mean, no one cares what I think about that kind of thing. I mean, what I think the lineup should be has little to do with what's going to happen. I would sit Paxton. I would start Schoen over Paxton at left wing. I think Paxton has had a couple of downer games where he's been flat. They had 3 games in a week. They're going to have more 3 games a week coming up. Paxton could use his game off. I think Schoen got done hard by Lucci when he came back from the Euros, and then didn't get right back in because he was playing really well right before that. So and then I would have also put Acosta in. I think that's pretty huge. I like the way Brandon's been playing. I like the way Surreal's been playing, but Acosta's the DP. Acosta's prime of career. Acosta's a big-time, huge player in this team. He should be in there. I don't have actually any problem with a Brisson-Hedges combo.
Okay.
Without Hollingshead, I think Majuma's your only response on the right. I was actually tempted to suggest this week that, or I would not have been shocked by this week if you'd rolled out there, swear from left to right, Martinez, Brisson, Hedges, Tafari. 4 center backs across the back, because Martinez can left back and Tafari can right back, or flip to Tafari and Brisson, because Brisson can right back too. Just to sort of go all defensive and lock it down and solidify and stop bleeding goals. That would not have shocked me. You know, I'd have been tempted by that in the situation where I've given up 3 goals a game for 5 straight games. I would have been tempted to go heavy defensive like that.
Interesting. Did you say who you wanted up top, or I didn't remember?
Pepi, of course.
You wanted Franco Haro.
Yeah, no, Franco Harzin.
No, but who did you have at the wings?
I told you, Obrian and Shun.
Oh, sorry.
I was benching Paxton, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Peter was in shock after you said that.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking if they made the call to me, I was going to play Faco and Paxton and Jesus in the middle.
Paxton is a deep 8?
As an 8, yeah.
Christ.
Play Faco as a single and play them as play them as the double 8s as he started the season when they were actually playing really well, when it was him and whoever the 2 double 8s were at that time when they were playing really well, and play it that way, and then put Shun and Obrian on the wings and Pepi and up top.
The double 8 where they had the 2 amazing games in a row with double 8 was Ricarte Acosta. It's a double 8.
That's what. But that formation is what I'm saying. But with Paxton and Jesus.
Sure. Yeah. Far away. Go ahead. That'd be awesome.
Why not? They're not winning anything this season. Let's try some new shit. Right.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Offensively, that formation is awesome. I'd be happy to see the double 8 all day. The problem is that unless Maurer's back and Brisson's back, which it looks like they probably are, it's the colossal bleeding of goals that was actually killing this team for the last 4 or 5 games. Thankfully, those 2 guys are back, so that probably is going to solve that problem without actually having to do anything.
I tend to think that Faco has a level of discipline to play that position properly and provide better cover than maybe a Cervena and Cirillo do combined.
Yeah, I buy that.
Just based on youth and experience and all of that. I just wonder.
Oh, well, yeah, the 6th position is like a goalkeeper in a way. A young 6 is so rare. I mean, that's one of the things that was so crazy about Grezzo was how young he was, because usually a 6, or quite often a 6 is about game reading and positioning. You know, sometimes it's a player like Oscar who's slotting back at the end of his career, or Deering, same thing. It's guys that can read the game at a really high level and play ahead of the game at a really high level. You know, so it's Michael Bradley's a good example of a guy that moved back to that position later in his career. Beckerman probably even too.
Yeah.
My boy Beckerman.
I know, you're a big Bex fan.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All right. Anything else that we need to talk about? Dan, you came in late. Did you have any post Lucci podcast thoughts that you wanted to throw in that you didn't get to at the beginning when we talked about this?
I did not. I'm afraid I'm coming in pretty light today.
All right, no worries. Buzz, anything else that we need to cover?
I have a big picture sort of thought, because I did talk to Eric Quill today too, and as well as Marco. And between those 2 conversations and the press conference with Dan and Sonata, I have a big picture macro feeling that nothing is going to happen here with a coach until November, till the end of the season. That effectively Marco has the rest of the season, and that they're not even going to really be looking. They'll be fielding resumes between now and then, but I'm just left with this feeling that nothing is happening until the season's actually over. That it's a blank slate for.
But doesn't that conflict with your suggestion that something about this feels different when it comes to the Sonata part of it?
No, because basically they're my impression comes from multiple conversations and the press conference when I combine it all together. And Sonata in that press conference said that he would be running the search, but that it hasn't even started. right? So it's going to take, and based on things guys told me and based on things other guys have told me, I really do feel that they've given Marco these 8 games and that the team and the club is basically just going to sit on their hands until the end of the season, and then they will begin the coach search. Now, the reason I think it's important to talk about that idea is because at the end of the season, really quickly, you have to make roster decisions. If you're a non-playoff team, you have to start doing stuff within a week or so. You have a little bit longer than you do if you make the playoffs because there's going to be an expansion draft that's going to happen, right?
Right.
So
that terrible thing that happens where somebody wins MLS Cup and then has to start cutting people on the 2 days after.
Yeah, on the flight home, right? So the point of that is that it doubles down on the idea that Sonata will be making roster decisions at the end of the season. And if Marco's kept as a head of soccer operations, Marco also. Those two guys and the committee and Dan Hunt will be making roster decisions while they're looking for a coach. So it doubles down on this South American style concept where it's the technical directors making the team, and I'm going to hire a coach to come in and stir this pot. And if it stinks after a year, he's out. I'm getting another guy. Now, maybe it won't be every year because this is slightly different MLS here, but it reinforces this concept that Sonata is calling all the shots, roster and now coach, and that it's his thing, and that the coach is just going to be brought here to stir up the ingredients after I get them for you. So that's the reason I want to talk about it, because I think that's very different.
And and Quill, and your opinion or your impression is he's full in thrown his hat in the ring on this.
I think so. He didn't. The conversation I had with him today was a little bit just between us, and I don't want to get into it too much. But, the people that we put on the list as legitimate interior candidates, I think they're all for legitimate interior candidates. No one has said to me, like, y'all are nuts on that one. Usually if I put out a list like that in the past and there's somebody on there that's been nuts, somebody will tell me, like, no way, dude, that one would never happen because of X, Y, Z. That doesn't happen. And I know Quill well enough to know that absolutely he has the ambition to be an MLS coach. So I without getting into specific details, I would be stunned if he's not at least a legitimate candidate. But if that's true, and I really believe it is, he's in the same boat as Marco. His team's floundering a little bit. He won a championship in year 1, but year 2, not so good. So, he would be in the same coaching for the gig boat.
He may have even gotten done harder in terms of rosters than Lucci did.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, his roster this year is a mess. And it's worse for him because every week it's like, I'm sending you a dude and you're going to play him. And I want you to be developing some guys. So, like, there's some guys that he has to play that are about long-term development ideas, and he has to play them a certain amount, even if it's going to hurt his team, and it often does. Yeah. So, and he's also trying to put it together with zero budget at all, and he had to go find all these kids, and they're all 18 years old, and they have trouble closing out games. And, if he had 100% control of his team, it would be very different. It's very inconsistent week to week lineup-wise. It's hard to build consistency because of those factors. So he's fighting upstream against that. But at the same time, he knows that it's a performance, and Marco does too. Both those guys know this. It's a performance-based business, man. And both of those guys have a chance to prove their mettle by winning on the field over the next month or two. So, I mean, in some ways, that's a challenge that coaches relish. I'm going to get done. Watch me, They all feel that way. Every single guy you ever talk to that wants this coaching job, they all say, I totally know I can fix it. I got X, Y, Z, and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to come in, we're going to do this, and I'm going to fix it, and we're going to get in the playoffs. They all believe in their ability and that they can get it done. Or they wouldn't be at that level if they weren't that confident.
Yeah, there's a part of me that would love to see them just use these 8 games to test things out for next season and look at different opportunities and try different players and stuff, and just smoke the rest of the season in terms of not worrying about making the playoffs, because I think that's such a far-flung dream. But maybe watching them really try to make a run at it would be entertaining, but also could be crushingly disappointing too at the same time.
It'll be most fascinating if they try and shake it up. Marco in particular. If Marco, like, within one game or two is disgusted and is like, that's it, and then tries some crazy crap, that'll be fun. Because I'm with you. There's no way. It's not just the points. It's the games in hand and how many teams are in the way. There's no way.
No.
You're not making the playoffs.
No.
Unless you win out. I mean, they're not winning out.
But they don't even control their own destiny, Buzz.
I haven't even done the math because this is stupid.
Well, no, they don't. I mean, I'm now look. I suck at math, so somebody's gonna, come back and go, Peter, you're terrible at math and you have this wrong. But I'm 99% sure that even if they win all of their games, there are assuming that doesn't put them in a playoff spot because there are too many teams in front of them with games in hand already. Additionally, that could also win out all their games and would be in front of them.
I mean, if you win out, that's 24 points. I mean, that would be end.
Well,
right? I mean,
but that doesn't mean you still control your destiny because that means other teams could also win out.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I think that would put them in a good position to do it, but that doesn't guarantee them a playoff spot.
No, if they were to win out, I would imagine they would get in.
You would? Oh, well, sure. That would be one of the greatest runs in the league's history. That'd be like a Seattle type.
I mean, they'd be at 51 points. That would be ridiculous. I mean, you would get in at 51.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, are you doing okay, bud? Sorry things didn't work out in getting you on very much today.
No, it's setting up a business. It's every hour's a work hour, unfortunately.
Hold on, I want to play a game.
Oh,
I want to play a game of what kind of business is Dan setting up? Is it a bar?
No.
Is it a hat shop, a haberdashery?
He's a hatter.
No.
You are a hatter.
That is true.
Is it soccer related in any way, shape, or form?
One of my clients is a soccer club.
Oh,
Nice. All right. All right. Dresses? Is it a dress shop?
That wouldn't make sense.
Okay, so Dallas goes to Vancouver. They got to win. Everything's on the line. Everybody's job is in danger and jeopardy.
Oh, yeah.
The world might end. 9 o'clock, Channel 21. Go team go. Don't forget that Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. That is your source for all of your international club gear, FC Dallas stuff, and U.S. national team gear. They've got new stuff in the mail that you can get right now. In fact, it includes even the Ronaldo jersey, and I even think I saw a Messi PSG setup that you can order there, including things from Juventus, Arsenal, and more. And you're a Third Degree listener, so you get that 25% off your order when you use the code Third Degree at checkout at soccer90.com. Well, thank you once again, Dan. Hopefully we'll get more of you next week.
Yes, that's 2 in a row I've only done half of. Well, if you discount the midweek one, the earlier this week one.
Right. So now you've done one full pod over the course of 2. That's not bad.
And I'm gonna miss next week.
no.
Oh, what's happening next week?
I'm taking a short vacation, so I'm heading out of town tomorrow night, and I won't be back until after the Hall of Fame game.
Buzz, do we know any other English guys that we could, call in here so we have some, legitimacy to the podcast?
It's not English, but we could call Juno. I mean, I call him for vacation. I mean, maybe I'm crazy.
No,
well,
I'm
not
just
going to
saying.
watch the Vancouver game, so I'm going to be useless.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Well, we're taking applications for an English voice on the pod, just in case Dan decides he doesn't want to do this anymore.
I will give you coaching in the accent if you need it.
Okay.
We can call Wayne. Wayne's a West Ham guy, right? Isn't he? He's British.
Is he British or English?
You would hear some amazing takes on the Hunt family.
Yeah.
We've been counting on that from you, Dan, frankly.
Look, we don't want to get into Cockney rhyme and slang, do we? With
No,
Dan
we
Hunt.
don't. All right. Well, have fun on your vacation, Dan, and thank you, Buzz. Thanks for all the insight and thoughts and putting up with me asking you silly questions, but sometimes those are the most fun ones.
Yeah, it's all right, dude. I was just thinking that I'm hoping Soccer Night is going to get the Weston McKennie Arsenal jerseys after he gets traded.
Oh, you think he's going to
Burnley.
Arsenal, do you?
Wasn't that the swap thing that was mooted today? The Weston for I can't remember.
Aubameyang?
I can't remember who it was
Aubameyang?
for. Thought it was for Weston. Thought it was for Arsenal. Maybe I was wrong about what team it was.
Oh, I
Shaqiri.
thought he was-
Where's Shaqiri at? Is he at Arsenal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the swap I
one of
heard.
No, Shaqiri's not at Arsenal. Shaqiri used to be at Liverpool and got sold off to some like Austrian team or something, I thought.
I don't remember. There was somebody with Weston being a swap deal with Weston and Arsenal, and I was like, man, that'll be fun.
Now, a few weeks ago, it was Tottenham.
Yeah, well, what Tottenham wants Arsenal wants, or vice versa.
Well, there was also Burnley. Don't forget Burnley. We're talking about.
There was a
bigger
Burnley
club.
one in there, too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure wherever Weston goes, Soccer Night will get the mock-ups for you. I mean, it's like
Oh,
Brian-
it's for Granit Xhaka.
Oh,
there you go.
For
Yeah.
Weston McKennie.
one of the other.
Sherry, Xhaka, any
Whatever.
name with an X in it,
Yeah,
right?
it's a name. How many
They're
X?
both Swiss.
Yeah, how many
both-
Swiss football players with an X in their name could there be? Right?
He's going to get swapped for Reto Ziegler.
Yeah. Well, he
But
doesn't
there's
have an
no X in Shaqiri. It just
Yeah.
sounds like there is.
Oh. Same thing. Whatever.
Well, this is a terrible dismount. Thank you, FC
It would be
Dallas.
better if you played Enter Shaqiri, but we don't want to get into copyright problems.
Oh yeah.
I don't get that joke.
Those hips don't lie, Peter.
The band? No, that's Shakira.
Oh no, that's somebody different. Oh man.
Oh my God, this is a terrible dismount.
I now know what the cold open is. Go ahead.
I'm gonna drink some bleach now. All right, thank you, FC Dallas curious fan. We'll somehow figure out a way to do a show, another episode next week of Third Degree the podcast.
I screwed it up.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.